All right, seventh graders, today we're going to talk about photosynthesis and respiration, mostly photosynthesis today. All right, so we've mentioned it before, but what exactly is photosynthesis? Well, it's the process of a chemical reaction, okay? It is probably the most important chemical reaction on our planet, at least for us. Okay, and most living things. All right, so the process of photosynthesis is a chemical reaction. Remember, we were kind of talking about that at the beginning of this unit, different chemical reactions. Well, photosynthesis is one of them. What is the equation for this chemical reaction? Okay, so whenever you have a chemical reaction, you have, your reactants. Okay, you have the things that are going to react in the chemical reaction. And those are usually listed on the left-hand side of the equation. Okay, so our reactants in this chemical reaction is carbon dioxide, okay, right here. What is carbon dioxide? Well, it's something that we breathe out. And water, so you add those two together. And adding light energy from the sun in the process of photosynthesis, you end up with a couple of different products. Okay, so you take reactants, you add them together, and you end up with products. The products we ended up with here are glucose. Where do we know that word from? Oh yeah, sugar, glucose. And oxygen, which, oh yeah, that's important. We need that. All right, so those are our reactants and our products in this chemical reaction of photosynthesis. All right, so how do we write that like a real scientist? Okay, well, a real scientist would write it like this. Okay, the chemical reaction with our reactants on the left. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit so it makes sense. Some of you may already know this, you may remember it, some of you may not have been exposed to it before, so I'm going to break it down. Okay, our reactants on the left are carbon dioxide. Okay, the C stands for carbon, the O2 for oxygen, carbon dioxide. All right, when you see the prefix di, like di, that usually means two. So two oxides or two oxygens. Okay, so carbon dioxide. That in and of itself is a molecule. Carbon dioxide is a molecule of air that we breathe out. Okay. How many of those in this equation? 6. We'll come back to that later. Okay, so just worry about the reactants right now. Now remember, we had carbon dioxide as one reactant. Call that reactant A. Reactant B here is water, H2O. You guys have heard of that before. So we have our two reactants. Don't forget we have the sun helping the reaction along. And then we end up with this, whoa, C6H12O6. What is that again? Okay, that's just glucose. And I forgot to write water over here. Okay, so you've got carbon dioxide, you've got water, and then you end up with glucose or sugar. And what's this guy? Oxygen. Okay, which is a good thing for us because we need both of those things, right? We need sugar. Okay, now when I say sugar or glucose, okay, I'm not just talking about the kind of table sugar. Sugars make up a lot of foods that we eat, a lot of plant foods. Okay, all plant foods actually have glucose in them. All right, and if it's not refined and they don't add sugar to it, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Would you want your whole diet based on glucose? Probably not. But we do need about half of our daily calories from starchy or sugary materials, okay? And I'm not talking about table sugar. I'm talking about vegetables, fruit, whole grains. Those things do have sugar in them, okay, or glucose. All right, then we have oxygen over here. So we have our reactants, we have our products. Let's see, I'm going to use a different color for this one. Okay, our products A and B over here. All right, so that's all good and fine. Now let's talk about the numbers. Why do we have different numbers here? Okay, in a chemical reaction, you have to balance the number of reactants with the number of products. So in this case, and that's going to be more 8th grade and upper level science, but I'll give you a basic rundown right now, you're going to end up or start with 6 molecules of carbon dioxide. All right, so that means that you have 6 carbon, and you have 6 times, oh wait a minute, there's 2 oxides there, so I have to multiply these 2 numbers. I end up with 12 oxygen here, okay? And then we have 6 hydrogen, and we have 12 oxygen, okay? Because remember, you have to multiply. Oh, wait a minute, I made a mistake. This number here always goes to the element it's behind. So instead of a 6H, I need to go back and fix that. We're going to make that 6 times 2 is 12H. And then 6 times, let's see here, 6 times 0, 6 times 1 rather, we have 6 oxygen. Okay, so on our reactant side, we have 6 carbon, 12 oxygen, plus 12 hydrogen, and 6 more oxygen. Okay, so we have a total of, let's see here, 12 and 6, it's 18 on a good day. So we have 18 oxygen, 6 carbon, and 12 hydrogen. Let's see how we did over here. Are we balanced? Well, we ended up with, let's go ahead and change colors for this one. 6 carbon here, 12 hydrogen there, 6 oxygen there. And then remember, we have to multiply these 2 numbers, right? 6 times 2 is 12 oxygen. Okay, so we add those up, we end up with a total of 6 carbon. Let's see, 6 carbon here, 6 carbon here, check. 12 hydrogen here, 12 hydrogen here, check. 6 and 12, again, is 18 oxygen. We're going to combine those together, and we end up with 18 oxygen here. So that's why we have to have the numbers in front of these molecules. It's how many molecules of carbon dioxide and water. So 6 each, 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 6 molecules of water. We'll end up with 1 molecule of, what's this thing again? Oh yeah, glucose, right? 1 molecule of glucose and 6 molecules of oxygen, both of which are pretty important to us, right, in most living things. So that is our equation for the chemical reaction of photosynthesis. All right, so now we know all about the chemical reaction. We know about the different molecules and how many molecules it takes to, create glucose. Now let's talk about what it actually is. So photosynthesis is the process of changing light energy to chemical energy. Remember the sun's in there, right? Okay, the energy is then stored as sugar. It doesn't go away, it's stored as sugar. This occurs mostly in plants. Plants need light, energy, carbon dioxide, and water. So they need 3 different things here to make this happen. Light, energy, carbon dioxide, and water. It takes place in the chloroplasts using chlorophyll, the green pigment in plants. So again, remember we were talking about inside cells. Those chloroplasts have something called chlorophyll in them, which is vitally important to have photosynthesis occur. So why does it matter to us? Well, number 1, we can't make our own food, okay? We're not like a plant. We can't make our own food or energy, so we have to get our food from plants, okay? Plants are the very first step in the food chain. They support the rest of the food chain all the way on up. The oxygen released during photosynthesis is necessary for all living things, so that's the other big reason, okay? And in fact, I'm going to include the food chain, because that is a good separate reason. And then number 3, oxygen released during photosynthesis is necessary for us and all other living things. Okay, so photosynthesis, good and great. Okay, we got it, we've talked about it, we get it. Now let's talk about cellular respiration. some reason that word throws a lot of people off because we think about respiration as what? Breathing, right? Well, there's more to it than that. Okay, remember we're talking about cells. Respiration is a process, right? You breathe in oxygen, you breathe out carbon dioxide. What does that do for your body? Get oxygen all through your body, right? So cellular respiration, what we're going to talk about now, is the release of chemical energy for use by cells. Okay, so what did we just talk about? Let's see, photosynthesis, what does it make? Oh yeah, energy. Energy stored as sugar, okay? So cellular respiration is the release of chemical energy for use by cells. Once the energy that was in sunlight is changed into chemical energy by photosynthesis, okay, so we have that sugar, we have that glucose. An organism has to transform the chemical energy into a form that can be used by that organism, okay? That process is called cellular respiration. So step one is photosynthesis. Okay, you've got to turn that light energy into chemical energy in the form of glucose, have that ready to go. And then cellular respiration takes that energy and makes it usable for a living thing. What is cellular respiration exactly then? It breaks down glucose molecules to release energy. This takes place in all living things. Remember the mighty, mighty mitochondria? It takes place inside of that mitochondria. And there are many steps. It's a step-by-step process. So that is cellular respiration. So it's not breathing. Okay? That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is breaking down sugar or glucose to release energy. Okay, so we talked about the chemical equation for photosynthesis already. This is a different chemical equation. This is the one for respiration. Okay, breaking down that glucose material. All right, so how does that work? Well, you have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. This is a glucose molecule. Got to break that down into energy. You add oxygen. Okay, so we have one molecule of glucose. We have, you can just imagine that there's a 1 there in front of it. If they don't have a 1, you can just assume the 1 is there. They often don't write the 1 because it's assumed that it's just one molecule. There's no number written in front of it. Okay, oxygen. How many molecules of oxygen do we have? 6. All right, so in cellular respiration, you break down glucose and oxygen, and you end up with 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water. Okay, in your notes, I want you to write down the answer to this question. Okay, how does the chemical equation for cellular respiration compare to the chemical equation for photosynthesis? How is it different? How is it the same? Make sure you write down a comparison at the bottom of your notes. All right, guys, that's it for today's video lesson. Please go ahead and rewatch the video if you haven't already. Take your notes, and then we will move on. Don't forget to name them correctly and submit to Google Drive Notes when you're done. You can show me before you submit them to Google Drive Notes.